Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the BTB Movie Club podcast. My name is Aaron Lashbrook. We hope you enjoy today's movie discussion. Thank you for listening.
Rolling. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the BTB Movie Club. My name is Tim Larson, here with several friends to talk about movie number 218. This is Aaron Lashbrook's pick. It is the Oscar-winning The Green Book from 2018. Aaron's a little under the weather. He's going to give us his best. Aaron, the show is yours. Take it away.
I'm going to make it quick. I'm going to be very choice with my words. Picked it because it came up. This one came up as a recommended from the Grand Budapest, and I forget which other one. My other choice was going to be Whiplash. And growing as a person, actually, I didn't. I just realized it like 3 days ago when I watched the movie that Whiplash has much better numbers. So I could have went with that if I was simply looking to pad my numbers. But I'm very glad I went with
not a contest.
I still want to see Whiplash. And I didn't watch it. I've watched a lot of stuff this weekend because I've been in bed all of it, or on the couch. But I didn't watch Whiplash because it seems like it's right on the bubble of maybe coming up sometime in the group here. So I think, who is it, Matt, that wants to watch it? Or
yeah. He tried to pull the trigger and he shut himself down. I just made a suggestion and he took it as he wasn't allowed to pick it. He's not here to defend himself, though.
Right.
So.
Yep. I didn't want to get too in the weeds, but
he's doing a floor routine somewhere in Panama. I don't know what he's doing.
So, like I said, I pleasantly surprised. I picked. I mean, I had high hopes and good intentions going into it, and for me, don't know about you guys, paid off. I enjoyed it, but I want to hear what you guys have to say about it. And we're going to start with Hilty.
This movie's perfectly fine. I do like it. It has some merits. It's got a little bit of white savior complex to it, but what's kind of nice about it though is that Viggo Mortensen and Mahershala Ali, they both do a pretty serviceable job for what they're asked to do. It's funny because the director of this is Peter Farrelly, who is part of the Farrelly brothers, who normally does comedies. So this is a pretty drastic departure for him. So I thought he did a pretty good job of directing it. I think this gets overshadowed for two reasons. The first is Viggo Mortensen, during some of the press tours, he casually dropped the N-bomb and said that during the press, a lot of some of the interviews, and that didn't go over well because you could tell when Mahershala Ali won the Oscar for this and Viggo Mortensen went to congratulate him, he just breezes by him. Like, oh, this is awkward. And the other reason why this gets overshadowed a lot is that it won Best Picture, and I don't want to say it didn't necessarily deserve it or anything like that. It was just a bit of a controversial choice for this to win Best Picture over some of the other movies that were nominated that year, which I don't know. It was because I'm just looking through some of the other movies that were nominated this year: Black Klansman, Black Panther, Bohemian Rhapsody, The Favorite, Roma, A Star Is Born, and Vice. There's at least 4 movies here that I think are better than Green Book, but Green Book also is a traditional pick for what the Oscars are looking for a movie to win Best Picture. So that doesn't surprise me at all. It was wildly successful at the box office as well, given the budget and the subject matter, and the fact that both both guys who portrayed this. Um, like the families were involved in this, and they both kind of co-authored and co-sponsored the depictions and everything like that. That's also good as well. Um, I I feel like a lot of the racism was turned way down in this, which, again, the Hollywoodization of situations like this is definitely prevalent, but still but at the end of the day, the main story is about the relationship between these two guys and the amount of growth, particularly that Viggo Mortensen, Viggo Mortensen's character has, but also Don also has some growth as well to, accept Lip, warts and all, for everything that he does for him as well. So overall, I've seen this a couple times before. My opinion about this really hasn't changed that much. I enjoyed it. It's perfectly fine. Uh, Probably not one that I'd probably put very high up there for me, though. You were on mute.
Yeah, you are muted there, Aaron.
That's cool. I get what you're saying. I'm repeating myself.
Mhm.
Just to me though, um, being it a fairly bro movie, did you get any hints, or were there any scenes that you were like, oh, I see the kind of goofiness, or you know, not really slapstick, but that the Fairley Brothers, um, I don't know, beats. They're offbeat beats. Um, can you point to any that like stood out, or do you think this was a unique, not trying to do what we do together? I'm doing this on my own, kind of.
I think I think when when Lip is first driving Don, and Don is just giving him crap for a lot of different things. Can you not smoke? Can you, you should be a food critic, for,
Eyes on the road. Yeah,
your elaborate vocabulary for calling something salty.
right.
Just it's more subtle, but I can definitely see some fingerprints here and there. But I can notice it a little bit more at the beginning when they're just trying to get to know each other and they feel a little bit more like an odd couple as opposed to being friends.
Yep. No, I like that. Um, yeah, there's it's obviously a dialogue
Mhm.
heavy movie. And I really like the dialogue. So I like their relationship. Um, Dan, what do you think of it?
Um, I like this movie. Yeah, I was a little surprised afterwards to read that it had won the Oscar for Best Picture, though. I'm not, um, but it was perfectly fine. I liked it. Tony, is a character that knows how like things work in life, and you see him with these kind of on the fringe of, mob connections. He knows people through the club and through jobs that he's had. So he doesn't get involved with the mob. Obviously you see him a couple of times, turn away the guys wanting him to do things for him, for them. So he kind of stays away from it, but he's on the fringe of it. Um, he and you can tell he doesn't have that much money because he does things like he takes the hat from the girl, gives her like $5 for the hat, and then gives it back to the guy and gets a lot more money for it. You know he, he's like the savior for the guy who finds his hat. Um, and the other scene where he's taking out a cigarette to smoke it, and he sees the other guys with cigarettes, and he puts his cigarettes away, and hey, can I bum a cigarette off you? He does little things like that. But there's a lot of things in this movie that are like symbols. Like I see the KFC moment where he wants to, give him fried chicken, and he's never had fried chicken before. He's like, oh, you've had fried chicken because you're black, so but then they end up meeting in the middle. He takes the fried chicken, he starts eating it, and he likes it. And it's kind of a funny scene, where they're throwing the bones out the window, but then he throws his cup out the window, and he doesn't like that at all. So he makes him back up and pick up the cup. Um, but the Cutty Sark booze that he drinks every night. I think that's kind of a symbol of his like isolation and loneliness. He sees him sitting there drinking it by himself. He has a whole bottle every night, so he's got to be. I'm not sure how much alcohol is in Cutty Sark, but it seems like a lot to be drinking a whole bottle every day.
Does anybody know what that is? I don't even know what that is.
I didn't
It's a
even know if it was
whiskey.
real.
It's a
Gotcha.
whiskey. Like, okay.
So is
Yeah.
it like a
Is it a
fireball
fancy
kinda?
whiskey?
Or is it like
I don't think so. I think it's a pretty middle of the road scotch.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
All right. Yeah, we think he would drink something fancy, being in his position that he's in.
The way
That's
he
why
dressed
I
and
didn't-
the throne he sat on.
That's
Yeah.
why I thought I didn't know what it was. I was like, oh, he's drinking fancy whiskey that I wouldn't know about,
Right. But yeah, and it's kind of funny at the beginning too, he does things like he has to stop at the side of the road and take a piss. And then when he gets out of his car, he takes his wallet because he's afraid that, this is a black guy. Hey, he's going to steal my wallet. And really they're the opposites. He's the guy that's would likely steal something, and Don is not. But yeah, I like this movie. It's the first time I've seen it. I like the music in it. I'm not sure if that was him playing the piano. Maybe somebody can tell me.
It wasn't.
Yeah, I was thinking probably not, um, but he did. We're now when they were showing the close up of his hands, was it somebody else sitting there,
Yep.
or was it him just
They
pretending
did a
to
real
play?
nice job of making it look like it was him, but it wasn't.
Yeah. Okay. All right. But yeah, like this movie, perfectly fine, and I'm glad I watched it.
So when I think it was the bass player came and got Lip and brought him to the bar the first time to save him.
Mhm.
Did Lip have a gun?
Yeah.
You think he had it?
Yeah.
I wasn't sure. I'm still not 100% sure. I mean, I like that at the end, but
Yeah, because he pulls it out at the end, so I think it was definitely there. I think he was just telling him that he didn't, because he didn't want him worrying about that kind of stuff.
yeah, I think it could be 50-50. Either he didn't have it with him. I don't think he would have bought a gun down south. He didn't decide to pick one up. I think he had brought the gun at the end with him. I just don't know if he had it in the bar, because it really looked like he was bluffing to me. But maybe he's not the kind of guy to bluff. So, and because
Right.
he is, the world's greatest bullshitter, which is not a liar. He's a bullshitter. Which you brought up the cigarettes, not a criminal, but looking for the scam. Like you said, instead of smoking his cigarettes, I'm going to smoke this guy's cigarettes. Just always looking for the angle to save, a buck or whatever. So, yeah, I like that.
Frugal. It's very frugal.
Oh, and one other thing, they were eating Stuckies. I don't know if you guys have ever gone to Stuckies before in the past.
I've heard of it.
We always used to hit Stuckies on the way to Florida. They were always in Kentucky and Tennessee. It was big on Stuckies. It was like a hamburger joint, and
I
they
was gonna
had
say I don't remember what they were eating. Was it burgers or like ribs?
yeah, it was burgers, yeah, and they had some Stuckies pecan rolls sitting on the side of their table there. That's what they were really famous for, was their pecan rolls.
Look at
Good to know.
Dan with the deep cut on there.
Stuckies disappeared though over the years.
All right, cool. Tim.
Yeah, I think I like this movie more than most people do. We did this in our other group, and other people said similar things. They're like, I like it. I don't get why it won the Oscar. A lot of people say that about this movie. I really enjoy it. It's like a buddy cop movie when they're not cops. Like there's so much good tension between Doc Shirley's character and the idiot that is Joey Lip. Just the total difference in culture between these two guys. adds for so much comedy that I can't stop looking. Every minute I'm waiting to see something funny happen. You know,
Tim,
Aaron's
can I
pushing back on the
can
word
I
idiot.
push back on
Yeah,
Lip
yeah,
being an idiot?
yeah,
You know, I think he's a man that chooses his words, and I think he's very clever in a lot of different aspects. So
yeah,
I don't think he's a dumb person.
yeah.
He's not well
He's
educated,
not educated. Yeah.
but I think he's very clever.
His
Even with
intelligences are very social intelligences,
right,
right?
even with the meal that I think Hilty brought up, maybe, when he described it as salty,
Hmm.
and the doc kind of gave him shit about it, but then he explained what he meant.
Hmm.
That anybody can make something taste good with a bunch of salt. It's important to
Hmm.
make the meal taste good without the salt, and then if you want to add some salt, add some. But he knew exactly what he was talking about. He just didn't. He doesn't start off by elaborating. He doesn't put too much on the table.
Right.
So that was just my thing, because I don't think he's an idiot.
Right, right. But my use of that word is the fine dining aspect of this trio bringing this guy on is that's how they kind of have to look at him. And
Okay.
so that tension creates a lot of really good comedy moments like Kentucky Fried Chicken in Kentucky. What are the chances? Like those are moments that are pretty Fred Flintstone, right? Um, but I think both characters are really endearing. The change that they both sort of go through is maybe this is a hang up for people. It looks a little predictable, right? That for them to meet in the middle, and you got Doc Shirley stealing the rock back at the end. Where there's no way he was okay with him taking that rock, and then all of a sudden he's got it in the end. So he's compromised some of his values and Tony Lip has compromised some of his values, and it might look a little too convenient, right, for the where the arc of this movie is going. But I like it. I like the characters are really well developed, and for a travel journey movie where you're stuck in this car together and going on the journey together, I think it works. I think it works really well. Um, I After watching this the first time, I did go out and pick up the Don Shirley album, and it's really good stuff while you're cooking dinner. Like I love the music in this movie. The piano is fantastic, and on this album, it's backed up. Um, I was reading some of the trivia stuff. Fairly, this is a friend of a friend things. Somebody was dating Robert Plant, and so he was actually talking to Robert Plant of Led Zeppelin, Robert Plant, about this movie, and he was like, "Hey, can you think of any music from the 50s, 60s that would be, legit to use in here?" And Robert Plant, of course, he's blues background guy. He's given him names of blues artists that were kind of, not as popular as some of the other stuff, like Chubby Checker. And so some of the film's music in the background is really well picked. Like you don't it's not like in the movie Stand By Me, they've got all these famous old songs that you already know the words to. Like he did a good job of picking cool songs that should have been popular but weren't for whatever reason. Um, I'm trying to think of the artist's name and I'm coming up with Lead Belly, but that's not right. It's somebody else. But that doesn't matter. I love the tone of this movie. I love the pacing, and I think the back and forth between these two characters is great. Some of my favorite scenes are the scene where he's trying to tell him to, hey, can we just call you Tony Valley instead of Tony Vallelonga? That might be difficult for these guys. Like they go shit in their hat. He's like, okay, that's another thing. Can we not swear? They go fuck themselves. Okay, good compromise. Like the juxtaposition of those two amounts of culture are, I think, it just I would watch it again. Like I would watch a second movie of this, as I'm sure a sequel wouldn't be anywhere near as good, but I would watch it just for that characterization. There is some background stuff here. So the screenplay is written by Tony Lip's son, and
Nick.
so Nick, right? Is that right? Mailer, help me out there.
Yep.
And then some of Doc Shirley's family pushed back on this and said, "Hey, they weren't friends." And then later on, they found like this was out in 2018. In 2019, they found an interview where Doc Shirley is actually recorded saying we had to be more than just work associates. I mean, my life was in his hands. We had to be friends. And so there's a little bit of controversy within family and how they felt about this relationship. But for me, who cares? I enjoy the movie, you know?
But then how well did his family know him? Because during the movie, he said he wasn't close
Yeah,
to them.
yeah. So there's some tension there, right? With even within the family. So I think that stuff's pretty interesting. Um, yeah, I like Tony Lip's arc. I like throwing the glasses away to the point where you get back to the dinner at the end and say, "Hey, don't call him that." You know, like I like that sort of learning curve just from having real experience with somebody. I mean, that's a real thing. It's easy to have negative feelings when you don't have real life experience. And oh, by the way, one more trivia thing: the family sitting around having dinner, that is actually Tony Lip's family, and Nick apparently like manipulated people to get those people as actors by telling like I think Vito Morganson, he was like, "Yeah, Farrelly's already on board with these guys doing it." And then he told Farrelly, "Morganson vouches for these guys as actors." None of that was true, and they didn't know it until the press tour after they were already on there. So he tricked the director and the actors into getting his own family into the sitting around the table. And I think they do a pretty good job. The only
The the one is a well-known comedian.
okay.
You know, kind of the cousin that's standing up, and when the doc comes in, like everybody's silent for a second, but then he's the
Yeah.
first one to make some room, you know, and
Yeah.
get him a seat. So, but because
Yeah.
he's in a TV show that I watch right
Okay. With one of the guys that's an actually family member, Vito Morganson said later, created continuity issues because in between takes when they'd say cut, he just kept eating. He's like, I don't know what you guys are talking about, prop food. This stuff's great. And so you go to the next scene and half his plate's gone because he wouldn't stop eating. I think that's great. And Tony Lip himself was in scenes in The Sopranos. Some information there so you can get a good look at him there. So, all right, I talked long enough. I really enjoy this movie. I don't mind anybody else's opinion on it. I just, for me, I think the relationship of the two guys throughout the movie is pretty cool.
now. Some of the things you brought up was like exactly why I really enjoyed it. And it was kind of what I needed. Like I said, I watched it, you know, it might have been Friday after I'd been laid up for 2.5 days already. And it was perfect. It was emotional enough without being a huge thinker.
Yeah.
Nice arcs, nice characters. Um, you know, I really liked it for that. The YMCA scene, you got what they were getting at without being beat over the head with it, you know, and they moved on. And then later on, when you know, they have the conversation about it when they meet the mob guys down south, and they're like, "Hey, you know, come meet us for dinner," and you really see the panic in Doc that he's going to lose him,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and he's like, "I'll, you know, pay you whatever you want." And he's like, "I'm not going anywhere, you know, I signed a contract, you know." He's like, "Oh, just the other thing." And he's like, "I've worked, what do you say, like clubs in New York for 15 years. I know it's difficult out
Complicated
there.
world.
Complicated. It's a
Complicated world.
complicated world. You
Yeah.
know, I just thought that was a great way he handled it. So
Yeah.
one of the other things where I was saying, like, he's a smart guy.
Mhm.
You know, he gets it. But like you were saying, it's more of a social intelligence.
Right. Yeah, he's not
than
an
a book
SAT
learner.
smart.
Yeah.
he's he's a street smart.
All right. Melo, what'd you think?
Actually, before
Oh,
before Melo goes, I actually do need to leave,
oh,
but before I leave, it's my pick
Yep.
next week. So I took a look, and unfortunately, because most of my movies don't have anything to do with music, I can't pick Whiplash. So sorry, guys, for that. But
Matt.
I am. I really wanted to though because Whiplash is a fantastic movie, and for the most part, I have seen most of the movies that were on all of the recommended lists. So I'm just gonna pick a movie that I love that I'm not sure a lot of people have seen because this was like a COVID movie, and it kind of didn't do great at the box office, even though I actually really enjoyed it. So this ended up on two of my two of my list. It ended up on the Nice Guys one, and it ended up on the Everything Everywhere All at Once one as well. So I'm picking the. I don't remember what year, but for next week we're going to watch Bullet Train.
Oh, all right.
Has anybody ever seen it?
I saw it.
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. I like this
All right.
pick. I haven't seen it. I know about it, and I always wanted to see it. So cool.
Matt's probably not seen it. Mike's definitely not seen it.
Last time we played this game, I got yelled at. I'm not trying this anymore. I'm not trying this game.
Good pick.
All right. All right. Cool. Well, all right. See you guys.
Thanks
Have
for
a good night.
See you,
showing up,
Hilty.
Mike.
All right.
Let's hear it, man.
All good, man. Yeah. Had not seen this. I knew the general idea of the film. I knew that there was some controversy. I didn't know exactly why, but I knew that it was kind of based on the content. Folks were kind of not happy that I didn't know enough, like in the way it was done, or that they stepped over a line or something like. And I think what it really came down to is what Hilty mentioned, the white savior premise and some of these issues. The main character is the white guy, where and that lesson learned, as opposed to maybe from the other side, and what he's dealing with.
Yeah, Melo. One of the things I read as part of the controversy is that the guy, I can't think of his name, that played Doc Shirley.
Mahershala Ali is how I pronounce it, but actually
Thank
Hilty
you.
pronounced it a little bit
He did
differently.
a little bit differently. He got an Oscar for best supporting actor, even though his screen time is over like an hour and 19 minutes or something like that.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the controversy is, why is that a supporting actor? I think that's part of it.
There was that. I just honestly, I think if it was nominated but didn't win, nobody would have really had that big of an issue.
Right.
But the fact that it won now, there's just more weight on that, and everything with it. So, yeah, I should have brought. So it's funny. I've talked about it a lot with the notes and everything. Literally, I wrote the title. I didn't write another single note the whole time. And so I left my notepad in there, but I should have brought it out, because as you guys were talking, there were all these different things that I want to write down. So I'll see what I can get through. The first note I was going to write was, they open in the Copa and like nobody's smoking. And so my first thought was like, oh, what a bunch of crap. They're like, 2025ing this, based on it.
Mhm.
Boy, was I wrong.
Yeah. There's a lot of smoking going on. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, during meals and everything, like it was a lot. But that was the first thing, and then the second thing I wanted to write was Linda. She plays the wife. So the last name starts with a C.
Marcelli or something like that.
Go ahead. I'll match.
Cardellini, something like that.
Yep, that sounds right.
She's fantastic in everything. I don't know if you guys have seen Dead to Me.
She's great in
that. Just a few other things. I like her in everything. I thought she did a great job in this as well. Same thing with the two leads. Say what you will about the movie, whether it you love it and you love the way they did everything, or certain pieces structurally were not to your liking. I don't think anybody would argue that those two men didn't do a fantastic job with the subject matter. It was a little weird to see Vigo, who have mostly only Aragorn, obviously, and a few other things, to really lean into the New York Italian guy.
Accent's great. He put on pounds too.
Yeah, big time.
I was going to ask if he actually put it on, or if it just kind of worked out. Okay.
He did.
Yeah,
I'm sorry to keep interrupting, but I did look up a lot for this one. They asked him how he put on most of that weight, and he said Italian food. pizzas and pasta, and he said the magic for gaining the weight was eat, not only finish your plate, but finish the second plate and part of the third right before you go to bed. Unbuckle your belt, fall asleep, you'll wake up with another 5-6 pounds.
I'm sure.
And in
When
that
he
hot
folded
dog
the
scene,
pizza,
he ate a bunch of hot dogs too, like 15.
Mhm.
when he folded that pizza in half, I was like, man, that looks good.
I got a buddy who, I mean, I'm 50 now, so but his stepdad used to eat pizza like that. He would get a pizza for himself and a
don't cut
pizza
it.
for the family.
Just don't cut it.
And
I want to fold
well,
it.
even if it was cut, he would just, take the cut pizza, fold it in half, fold that in half, and that's what he ate. Every time they got pizza.
We had calzones.
Yeah, I was gonna say, just order a calzone.
Yeah,
They'll do it for you.
I don't think they did those at Little Caesars at the time.
Nah, probably not. Probably not.
Pizza, baby.
The biggest issue for me, the 2 months to go from being the guy who throws away glasses to being the guy who we see at the end. It's a pretty big jump, especially because in order to be that guy, like those movements had to happen a lot earlier. What makes it believable, I guess, or what I really appreciated, there's a scene where he says they're in the car and he's talking. I think it might be with the chicken, but he's like, my dad said, whatever you do 100%. If you're going to work, work. If you're going to laugh, and that and that resonated with me. I like that a lot. And just personally, but then also for the character, okay, if that's this person's anchor and their baseline, then kind of the rest of it I can buy. It fits, right? Because even early on, he's like, I'm not going to be your butler or whatever, but by the end, he's holding this suit for him. And, you see some of those changes based on, it's not about lowering himself. He respects the other person.
Right.
And that I thought that was really good.
I love that first scene where he's watching him play the piano and he tries to own the word virtuoso as being Italian. I think it's funny, right? And right on the nose. But that scene where he's watching him play, he's like, holy shit, this isn't just, something goofy. This guy's really good. And then he immediately get the letter home to the wife saying how good that, I think he's some kind of genius. That's what gets you to that spot that you're talking about.
So funny, humbling moment for me. I watched this in 2 parts. Watched the first half last night, watched the rest today. And I'm watching it and they do the credits and, they show the pictures of the actual people. And Don, they show toward the end of his life, and just something about it very much reminded me of Elton John.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I wonder, so then I'm trying to go through the Wikipedia stuff and all this, and then I'm looking and just learning, and they never mention anything about, because the whole other thing with him, this is, so the family, his family, Don's family, I think their biggest pushback was that he said he felt like an outsider, didn't connect to them. Like he had 3 brothers. He did actually have interaction with, like they exaggerated that part, was their argument. Anyway, so I'm going through the Wikipedia and like never mentioned anything about orientation or, whatever. And I'm like, nah, I want to look this up. Right. And so I type in, what's his last name? Don
Shirley.
Don Shirley Gay. And just to see, and they're like, yeah. And they even talk about this in the Green Book. I'm like, oh shit, I totally forgot they had the whole other scene.
Oh,
where they didn't hide at all. Like it was there. Anyway, it was just, like I said, funny, humbling moment for me where I thought I was actually kind of clever. And
hey, you know what? I think he's gay.
Yeah. Well, because they don't
power
touch
of perception.
it again. They don't and they didn't need to, but it was just
Yeah.
funny that it was one of those, like, kind of why it felt even more like a fish out of water in this time. Uh, like he didn't need any more layers, but that was an extra one. And the movie itself didn't do more than touch on it for a second, and like Aaron said, handle it, specifically Tony in a pretty good way, where just move on because it's
Yeah, I
already
think the only other time they bring it up is when he leaves the car in the rain and he goes and chases them down. He says, I don't
I'm
fit
not
in
man
with
enough.
blacks, I don't fit in with the whites, and I'm gay. But that's the only other time I think they mention it.
okay. Yeah, I didn't remember.
There was the subtle hint earlier in the movie when he talks about I couldn't play the role of being a musician and a husband.
Yeah.
So he was, I
Yeah.
think that was kind of alluding
Yep.
to it, that he was playing a role being a husband.
Yeah. So anyway, it's just one of those things that, had they wanted to make that choice and really delve into that some more too, I think they definitely could have. Trying to think. That back to the Farrelly stuff. I did have to look up to see for sure if that was the same Farrelly from Farrelly Brothers, and obviously it is. And um, we talked about there is that you can feel that humor nowhere near as obvious, obviously, as like Dumb and Dumber or something like that, but there are moments there, and at the end there's a couple with the guy. Is it his cousin, or it's not his brother, right?
It's
The
his
other
brother-in-law. I'm pretty sure it's his brother-in-law.
brother-in-law.
The
Okay.
dark-haired comedian.
But there's like a couple of really quick hitters where like the pawn shop guy shows up and he's like, "Oh, I was kidding. Oh, and you brought your wife? What do you know?"
Yeah.
And then he's like, and then off screen he's introducing him. He's like, "Oh, he didn't even bring anything. This guy."
Yeah.
Like, it was one after another that was killing me.
Well, what I thought maybe had a Fairley Brothers beat to it was but I totally agree with it. The throwing the chicken bones out the window,
Mm-hmm.
and then the cup goes out the window. I'd have been
Yeah.
like I can in my mind, the chicken bones aren't littering. That's natural.
Right,
It's
right.
going to be broken down. But the cup, no, go back. We're getting the cup. Don't.
Such a weird line to draw, right? We're just throwing shit out the window in the car. It's chicken bones okay, cup's not okay. I agree with you too. There's a coyote
Yeah.
that's gonna pick that up, or a raccoon.
So anyway, yeah, all said and done, I definitely enjoyed it. I understand some of the criticisms. I think they would have been lesser had it not had the extra weight of winning Best Picture. But very enjoyable overall. It was funny, Jam and I. A lot of times we'll watch these together, or there's something, we're watching A23, or A24, and she's like, nope, I'm out, like right from the get go or whatever. This one, it was just timing, but every time I'm watching it, like she's in the kitchen standing behind me, and I hear, like I didn't know she's there, but I hear her laugh or something. You know what I mean? Like, so
Yeah.
it's wherever you land on it overall. I think it's hard to argue that it's not a well done movie. So.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. Very similar with my wife. Wasn't in the room, maybe not even home when I started it. But by KFC, she was coming in from the kitchen and standing in the doorway where she could see the TV, and then walking away. And then like I'd laugh and she'd come back in and sit down, but she was listening the whole time. She never like asked me to catch her up because she knew what was going on, but she just,
Yep.
so very, and then she, watched it through the end with me. So
You guys, I'll tell you one thing that I did mention before that I wanted to bring up is his smile when he's playing the piano. Don Shirley is the fakest smile in the world. Like when he's in those galleries, I mean, he had to have done this on purpose, the actor. It's the most fake smile that looks brilliant, right? It's a beautiful smile, but you can tell there's no warmth in the eyes until you get to the place with the orange chicken or whatever that place is. When he's on stage and he removes the whiskey from the piano, which is a nice little cutesy little move right there. But he starts with the fake smile, and then by the time he's really getting into it with the other guys, you see a legitimate real thing going on there. Like he's having a moment where he enjoys something. And that's a really cool scene for me. That whole scene is really cool anyway, but that moment you can tell that there's a pure actual joy going on with that guy in that moment.
So there were two things. So the line at the end of that, when they're walking out to the parking lot, and the
Gonna
guys
show
are
a
going to
lot of
be
cash in the
there.
bar. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But he's like, that was so much fun. I would do that for free once a month.
Mhm.
And so I kept waiting to find that in Wikipedia or something that and then maybe he did, and it just wasn't there. But, and then, just a stupid thing. The bartender's first name is Ninja. I thought that
Awesome.
was, yeah, I thought that was fantastic. Like she looked kind of familiar. And I just wasn't sure. And I'm like, all right, let me, it's Amazon. So let me hit pause and see what we got. And yeah, her first name is Ninja. It's great.
So the female bartender at the Orange Bird.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
That was cool.
It's the orange bird. Did I say orange chicken?
Something like that.
It's a Chinese dish, isn't it?
Yeah.
I have the orange chicken. Oh, I'm right on top of it today.
I don't think they served orange chicken at the Orange Bird.
No, 2 orange birds.
No, that's super quick. Talking about that scene, the Orange Bird scene. I kept waiting for like another shoe to drop, because in this kind of movie, predictably, there's the friendship grows tight, there's a betrayal, there's a rebuild, and there was never like the huge betrayal.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, oh, there's only a few minutes left. I was like, oh shit. Because I was just looking for something. You already saw the guys see the money. And Doc was at the piano playing, and he was just got into like the jazz groove. I think the other guys had just come on stage, and they were having like a really good time. And you see the door open just barely in the left-hand corner of the screen, and somebody comes in, and it looks like a white guy with white hair. And I'm assuming, it's some pissed off cracker that's going to shoot him. And that's how it's going to end, like in tragedy. Because I didn't look up like if this was even based on a real story or anything. So like, I'm like, is he going to fucking die? I was so upset. And then it didn't happen. And I was so relieved that as they were walking out to the car and he shoots in the air and the guys go running away, I jumped. It took me by surprise because I had totally forgot about that. Like I totally thought we were in the clear. I was buying the happy moment. And then he's like, goo, goo, and the guys go running. I was like, what the hell? So it got.
Yeah, I thought that was why they showed the car. Like, I say, they were showing them walking out to the car, and then they stopped and just showed the car for several seconds.
Right,
and I'm like,
right.
somebody's there.
That's right. That's right.
And yeah, I don't know how Lip knew there was somebody, but he's just, street smart. So
He's
he either saw a foot or something. Maybe we could see a foot, but I didn't see it.
That was the other one thing. So in looking this up, Lip not only had a pretty decent role in The Sopranos, but in a lot of things.
Yeah.
He was in Goodfellas. There was a ton of stuff uncredited. Dog Day Afternoon. Oh crap, I can't remember now. There was a ton uncredited, and there was a lot that was like legit, like not just like a one scene kind of fun thing, which was
that fucker
so weird.
Probably weaseled his way onto those
right.
Well,
and at the end he's got
like, I was just bringing coffee, but since you need somebody, I'll just get in the scene. Sorry.
At the end, they showed the 3 pictures, and it was Don Rickles. I knew the person in the middle. I can't think of who it was now.
DiMaggio.
Yeah, DiMaggio was in the middle. Who was on the left? The dark haired. Was it like the singer? Was it like Bobby Dale or something like that? One of those.
No.
I didn't get that far today.
Oh yeah, but
it's a singer.
Yeah, I figured it was some type of singer just because of the hairdo.
Actually, I didn't make it over to Rickles. I didn't realize. Like I got to those two because I think
that
DiMaggio
was
helped me out.
weird because I got to say DiMaggio to my wife, and she's a softball, baseball person.
Right.
I was like, she's like, isn't that? Oh, who? First she said, isn't that? Shit.
It's not Tom Jones.
She said, isn't that Don
Like Paul
Nichols?
Anka?
Oh,
Don Nichols is the guy we graduated with.
No.
I was like, you mean Don Rickles? And then I was like, and the guy in the middle is Joe DiMaggio. And she's like, holy shit, it is. So he's like, he must have been like a New York,
right.
Bronx legend or something.
He's Tony Lip.
Brooklyn.
Everybody knows Tony Lip.
well, he's the concierge at the Copa. Everybody goes to the Copa. You get your picture. I'm surprised Sinatra if he's got Rickles.
Right. The other scene I really like is when he comes in at the end. I'm glad he showed up, and I don't care if it was real or whatever, but felt a little. I mean, I get it why he didn't come up right at the end when he's waking Nick up or whatever, Lip up, and he's like, "Come on up," and it's like for a person like that, that's like a late invite, and no, I'm not going to come up right now. But I'm glad he came back. I don't really see this as the white savior thing.
I was going to say that. Aaron. I wish Hilty was here to go back and forth on this because I agree with you.
I think they give each other they save each other as much. Lip's kind of like the guy, when he tells him, I'm blacker than you are, you don't know who Chubby Checkers is or Aretha Franklin. You don't eat fried chicken. You don't know nothing about, your people are my people. I'm broke, but then that whole thing about he realizes, and he didn't need Tony or is it Tony? Why do I keep
Tony Lip?
Yeah,
Tony.
Yeah.
I got Nick in there somewhere.
Nick's the son that wrote the screenplay.
Okay. Shit, what was I saying?
Well, let me take it for a minute here. Like,
savior.
I think of white savior, and I think of like The Blind Side, where somebody's using their what people like to call white privilege as a stepping stone to sort of, in quotes, help a black person to a better spot, but they're not really, that person's life isn't really better. They just, got them from one. That's none of that's going on in this movie. These are just two dudes juxtaposed together that have a better understanding of each other and maybe a greater feel for some preconceived notions that they had. But I don't see one person using their status in life to make the other ones better and a savior thing. Man,
Right,
I wish Hilty was here to argue against that, but
kinda. I can relate and remembered what I was going to say to what you were saying. Where it was back and forth, and I think they both helped each other grow. Where Tony was going through his, I'm blacker than you. That wasn't a big epiphany. Like Tony didn't learn him something he didn't know. He already knew he didn't fit in virtually everywhere. So I thought that was a big one where like there was, I guess the theme of the movie was acceptance of self and of each other. The whole glasses that, Tim brought up earlier, throwing them away because the black guys had drank out of them. I just thought that was all good growth. It might have been a little on the nose. It might have been a little quick.
Yeah.
But it was supposed to be 2 months, and I think 2 months is a long time to spend
in a car.
When you're together, all the time. Yeah.
So, other than
except at the hotels, they weren't together.
Right. Unless they had to be.
Right.
Did anybody know that? Did anybody know what Green Book meant before?
Never heard of it before this movie.
Nope.
Which
I
maybe
knew what
that's
sundown towns were. I mean, they still exist.
Yes.
We like to talk about the fact that we're a bunch of middle-aged white guys talking about racial issues. Like maybe there's a reason we never heard of No Green Book, but I had not heard of it for sure. And also, I agree with Aaron. Dan, our relationship, the entire thing is built off a 10-hour car ride to get down to Tennessee together. That's how we actually we knew each other beforehand. But We
That's
did a
true.
10-hour car trip, and we've been real close ever since.
Yeah, so like something like 2 months together, I can totally see that. Um, I know like boot camp and stuff trauma bonds people, and I mean there'd be some trauma bonding being in a car together for that long. But the only other thing I would say is I was kind of waiting for, and they never touched on, and I really didn't care that they didn't touch on it or make a bigger deal of it or make it a point. Was I think he almost had a raging bull kind of put himself in positions sometimes to get punished for what he thought he didn't live up to, or when he got like feeling bad about himself. And they never really touched on that, but I absolutely think he put himself, you know I like what the band member said too about having courage, being great, or being whatever he said about him being a good musician. It doesn't mean anything if you don't like push it out there and like have some courage, like a Jackie Robinson or something like that.
It takes courage to change somebody's mind, right?
Yeah.
I think that was the line.
So I think there was a lot of that, but there was also like some self punishment that he was looking for, that he knew he was going to get while he was down there. The last little thing I'll say is I love the end, and I don't even care that they didn't deal with this either, because technically they shouldn't have got paid the full amount of money,
Right.
because in Birmingham they left the show.
Right.
But when Tony put that guy through the wall, and he asked Tony, if you want me to play, I'll play.
Mm.
Nope. Let's get out of
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
So I don't know if Doc just paid him out of his own pocket or whatever, but I thought that was really cool.
It was all out of Doc's pocket, right? Like, I mean, it
Well,
was
the
basically
record
the
labels,
contract.
yeah,
Doc got paid for everything except the last one. And I'm guessing Doc said, all right, you did your job. You're
right.
getting paid on he's not going to,
It did seem a little bit like the record company was paying Tony Lip, and part of it was like you have to make sure he gets to these shows. Like I don't know that they trusted
oh,
Don Shirley to get to all the shows. I mean,
that's fair. And there was a
he's
line, I don't work for him. I work for the record company, which
yep,
is,
and
yeah.
he's drinking an awful lot of booze every night, and he's on his own decided he's going into the Deep South, which is risky. And so I think the record company was like, you don't get him there, you don't get paid. And so I think Aaron's making a good point here. Like they might get real shitty and go, you don't get the second half of your money because what's some guinea wop from the
Yeah.
streets of New York going to do to a record company if they don't pay him, even though he made most of the shows? Tim doesn't speak for all of the people when he says words like guinea and wop at the BTB movie club.
Christy told me, watch your mouth tonight. He was worried what slurs were going to come out of my mouth.
Yeah. Who had their money on Tim going with the
Not
racial
me.
slurs?
I think I've been pretty good. I don't think I've.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But no, I really like that when Doc looked at him and said, and that's why once again I don't see the savior thing. It's like I'll play if you want me to play. I know it'll get you your money. And he's like, fuck this, let's get out of here. And then they started that bullshit. You can't leave. I love that. That's great. So, but that's all I got to add.
Yeah.
I really liked it. I thought it was what I needed, this weekend. So
Nice.
And that music is fantastic. I'm telling you, the album is really good too. And just listening to it, I don't know. He's talking about wanting to play Chopin, and the stuff that he's playing, I don't know about you guys, I can't tell the difference between this is classical and this is pop music that's played on a trio. Like for me, they sound very similar. Had a little more pep to it, I guess, but I loved listening to it. When Tony Lip's supposed to be watching him and being amazed by him, I'm just listening to it like this is really cool stuff. There's no chorus.
I was thinking about that at the Orange Bird when, like, he went up there, clearly showed that he's a badass, and the other guys decide to join. Okay, cool. Like, but at one point, Like he just kept being a badass. And in my head, I'm like, all right, this is still kind of like a jet. Like you got to give up the spotlight for a second and let everybody
Yeah.
do their thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was just a very minor thing. Like
on a rewatch when Tony Lip's talking to him in the car, like, this is Little Richard. You don't know Little Richard? Do you think you can play like this? And he says, well, it does sound quite complicated. That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, and kind of what you were saying, Tim, the whole I don't know the line, something about like not many people can play Chopin, and then he says, and nobody can play it like me, or something like that. So it's
Yeah.
like, there's nothing wrong with being confident.
Yep. And then he tears it up in the bar. That's cool. And I like the look on, now that we know her name, Ninja's face when he is playing. She's like, all right, okay. Hey, you are absolutely right. It's cool.
So the other thing, like I half went looking through Wikipedia for, but not that consciously, that I still don't know. Did he actually live above Carnegie Hall?
I
didn't know anybody did. That blew my mind.
That's
yeah.
That's
that's a thing that could happen. How rich is it?
Right.
Yeah. It's so good. He goes in there. He's like, I'm supposed to be at a doctor's office or something. Did I get the wrong address? Yeah. Good stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Really good pick, Aaron. And Hilty's already he's already displayed the next pick. So the next movie will be Bullet Train. Have a good week, everybody.
That'll do it for this episode of the BTB Movie Club podcast. Thank you as always for listening. We know we enjoyed ourselves. We hope you did too. Have yourself a great week. We are partnered with the SPDM Crew Podcast Network.